Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We will get started here momentarily. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. While we're waiting to get started, we'll get started here momentarily. But while we're waiting to get started, let's go ahead and post up in the chat, if you can, where you're tuning in from. We always like to chat and see where we have our audience coming in from today. So please post up in the chat where you're from. All right, we got Cirilla, our presenter from Tempe. Oh, chat is disabled. Let me figure that out. Thank you for sharing that. All right, chat should be working now, so please post up in the chat where you're tuning in from, and so we can see. We've got Gilbert. All right, East Mesa, Tucson, Flagstaff, Peoria, Tucson, Vale, Phoenix, Tucson, Cape Creek, Tolleson, Page. All right, Window Rock, Maricopa, Buckeye. Chandler. All right, excellent. So thank you for joining us today. So go ahead and jump in and get started. I'm Robert Theobald. I'm the Small Business Ombudsman and Vice President of Small Business Services at the Arizona Commerce Authority. I'm your host for today. Thank you for being with us. We are glad to have you in attendance. We've got a great session lined up for you today. As we like to do, we like to start by thanking all of our community partners. We could not do these webinars without them, their time, their effort, and their expertise. They give back a lot of their time to participate in these boot camps, and we definitely appreciate them for that. So those that are new, the Small Business Boot Camp is designed to help small businesses prepare, plan, and grow. And not only is it the 9 a.m. webinar every Tuesday morning, but we also do workshops, lunch and learns, in-person workshops, and other events to help small business owners with the education needs that they are seeking to help them run their businesses better, more efficiently, more effective. A key part of the Small Business Bootcamp is the content library. And we record all of our webinars and all of our virtual workshops and lunch and learns that we do, and we post them in the content library. So you have access here to over 300 recorded webinars and workshops at no cost. You can go in and view the recording. You can download the slide decks or any of the other materials that may have been provided, and it's a great resource for you. Some other tools that the ACA has available that help support small businesses are the Career Readiness Credential, the Arizona Innovation Challenge, the Arizona MVP, the Arizona State Trade Expansion Program, the Arizona at Work, and Small Business Services. You can find more details on all those programs and more at our website, azcommerce.com/programs. Another great tool is our small business checklist. You can scan that QR code right there and it'll take you to it. But the small business checklist is an interactive online resource that helps small businesses and potential small businesses, entrepreneurs, founders to identify the commonly requested licensing, registration, and compliance requirements at the local, state, and federal levels. This is important if you're looking to start a business or if you're looking to grow your business into new areas. You can identify what resources you need to enter into those areas. There's also a lot of other information on there. It's a very in-depth checklist, plethora of information, and you can again access that through the programs page that I mentioned previously or scanning that QR code. So some quick small business updates. Work with Waits. It's a company. They're looking to do an event on how to work with them, and they're looking for local service providers, local businesses that can provide their needs. I will post up some information on that in the chat here shortly. But with that, let's look at the upcoming sessions. We've got some great upcoming sessions on the horizon. We've got our ChatGPT for Business. We've got Canva Mastery Bootcamp. We're going to dive into, many of you have probably heard of the graphics design tool Canva. We're going to dive deep into how to use that to help you as a small business owner. And then we've got a marketing branding session on constructing and updating your core marketing message. So we've got a great lineup there. And then we have a great upcoming Friday Lunch and Learn webinar on Friday, April 12th. For all those businesses that are looking to hire or running into challenges in hiring, we're going to talk about the guide to harnessing untapped talent resources. So that's going to be brought to us by our friends over at the Arizona Small Business Association, ASBA. So join us for that. And with that, we're going to jump into today's session. We've got one of our presenters back, which hasn't been on for a little bit, so we're glad to have her back with us. It's a Cyrilla Gaylord, and who runs Orchestrating Your Success. So Cyrilla, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and turn it over to you. And throughout the presentation, when you have questions, please post those in the Q&A that you'll find at the bottom of your screen. That helps us keep track of the questions, and that way we can use the chat for other items. So with that, Cyrilla, it is all yours.
Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, so good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending this webinar. Thank you, Robert, for inviting me to present. So today we're going to talk about Project Management 365, moving your projects through the pipeline. Okay, before we get started, just to kind of tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Cyrilla Gaylord. I am a certified project manager and trainer. I'm the owner of Orchestrating Your Success. We are a project management company. We work with nonprofits, we work with private companies, and we work with government. And we help bring some of these project management best practices into their company as we are working on their projects. Also, I just started a podcast called Manage Your Projects with Confidence, where we talk to small businesses and how they're using project management through their entrepreneur journey. And then to learn more about that, we can kind of talk about that at the end of the presentation. So again, this is Project Management 365, moving your projects through the pipeline. So what does that mean? So we're going to be talking about project management best practices, how to embrace specific measures to do two things: how to successfully execute your projects and how to align your projects with your business goals, which is extremely important. So how are we going to do this? I came up with 10 areas of focus for optimum project management, so that you guys can understand how to run a successful project and how to bring some of those best practices into your organization so that you can execute effectively. So let's get started with number one, which is review current project portfolio. So I don't know how many of you at the beginning of the year, or maybe sometime in December, where you kind of do a review on what's out there. What projects are still going on that you have to bring into 2024? Where are they at? What is the budget? Right? How far do we need to still continue with these types of projects that you have going on, bringing them in from the previous year? But don't forget, you're going to have your 2024 projects, and it's very important to review those projects that you're bringing over into the next year to see if they're even if you want to still do those types of projects, right? You know, are they having some type of effect on your budget? Are they worth still pursuing? Maybe you need to push them out. Maybe you need to kind of close those projects out so that when you go into the following year, or next year, which is 2024, you understand what's going on and what you're bringing into that particular year, and making sure that it kind of aligns with some of your different business goals that you want to use in 2024. So that's the first thing you want to do. Review your projects. What do we have going on? What are we bringing on? Do we need to close things? Do we need to still pursue them? What's the effect on the budget going into the next year? The second thing you want to do is examine lessons learned from previous projects. So what did you learn from doing particular projects? Now, I know sometimes, you know, we kind of get busy in projects and we don't really take the time to maybe do a survey to some of your vendors or the resource that you have on the project. But this is actually very good to do, is to do a survey and get the feedback that you want, so that you can understand how to do your projects more effectively. So what lessons learned that are benefits for you to learn is, what processes are you doing best? What are those processes that say, yes, I got it. These are things that we are really executing, we are doing well. You know, another thing that lesson learned help to understand is, what are those challenges? What are those things that are really hurting us as we do projects? What are those things that we keep doing over and over again that is not so good? Why do we keep bringing them in? What is the problem? So those challenges you want to know so that you can understand, so you can fix it. And then what are the opportunities? What are those opportunities that we are missing as we're going through and doing these different types of projects, so that you can understand, again, how to do projects effectively? If you understand what you're doing well, if you understand what those challenges are and how to fix those processes, and what are the opportunities? So some of those opportunities that you're missing, you can bring to the forefront. Another thing that we want to talk about, just business plans and project objectives. So I want to talk about the business plan. So for example, for me, I do my business plan. I do a 1-year business plan, and I start doing my business plan probably in like November and December. And I kind of sit down and talk about and write down what I'm going to do with the following year. These are my goals for the following year. These is the stuff that I want to accomplish. This is the way I'm taking my business, for 2024. these are the things I want to accomplish. Okay. So it's very important to understand what those goals are in your project plan so that when you're taking on projects, it aligns with your business plan. I know sometimes we take on projects and we're like, why am I doing this? Why did I take this project on? And when you look back on your business plan, it doesn't even align with where you want to go. Now the project has taken you, way left, on where you want your business to go. So that's why it's very important that we understand our goals and where we're going, as a business, because we want those projects that we are taking on to align with those business plans. And as far as project objectives, what are those projects that are going to align? Do they, what is the scope of those particular projects? What is it going to bring you as far as those projects into your business, and understand, do they align with the project goals? We want to make sure that we understand these types of projects. So again, they're all aligned to basically, aligned to basically what your business plans are saying and what you're going to, what directions you're going to go into for your business. Another thing that you want to do as a best practice, in engagement of the sponsors or the stakeholders. Okay, so these are what I call, sponsors and stakeholders are responsible for the project. I can tell you one of the biggest reasons why projects fail is because of sponsors' engagement. We understand that the sponsor is responsible for this project. You may have a department or a director or whatever that are responsible for the project. They understand it, but then they kind of just move away. Right? It's hard to find them. They have moved to another project. So that's why it's very important that you understand who the sponsor are, understand how the project is going to affect their areas of business, right? And understand how to engage them. I'm going to talk about communication later, but this is very important so that, those sponsors, don't go away and they'd be like, oh, okay, they go away and they kind of forget. So having a plan to how to engage your sponsors and your stakeholders and keeping them up to date on on your project is critical. There's ways you can do it. You can always have a one-on-one. You can invite them into some of your weekly or bi-weekly meetings to keep them engaged and ensure that, they don't fall off, and that you can, we have critical decisions that you need to make based on your project. They're there and they understand, and then they can help you make that decision. Another thing to talk about is budgeting and financial project planning. Now, this kind of goes back to the business plan, and it also goes back to understanding what kind of projects you're going to be taking on as a business. Did you put it in the budget? Do you understand what the budget is for these types of projects that you're going to bring in? Now, it's not just, the money side of it, but also the resource side of it, the people, the technology, all of that has to be planned so that you can understand how much of the budget is going to take for specific projects. Okay. Because if you don't have the money, you're not going to be able to plan effectively and have those expenses paid when you're kind of going through these different types of projects. Another area is resource planning. So when I talk about resource, I'm talking about two things. I'm talking about people, right? Because we always talk about resources. We always think people, but also you need to talk about technology. Do you have the necessary systems in place to run an effective project, right? Whether, it's moving to project Office 365. Is it, going to the cloud? Is that going to help, with these different types of projects so that you are not wasting time doing things manually, right? You want to be able to get these projects online and do them in a very effective and time-saving way. So understanding what those resources are. Do you have the staff to do these different types of projects? Do you need to bring in temporary staff to bring, to help you with the project? Do you need to contract it out? Do you need to hire? So all of this stuff, when we talk about resource planning, you need to kind of think about as you're moving through these projects and understand how they align again back to your business plan. Another thing we want to talk about is project management software and tools. Here's another, I will say, a thing that can actually have your projects fail, is because you don't have the right software in place. There's so many software out there that you can use, and some of them are free, that you can use to keep track of your projects, where they're at, how much money are we spending? Do we have, what resources are working on? You can break it down to what departments are working on these different types of projects. And all of this information, it kind of rolls up. So when you go and look at, when I talked about, understanding your project portfolio, you can understand some of these things, these resources, the time that it's spending, because it kind of all just kind of rolls up, in understanding the whole project. What are you doing each of these projects, where they are at? Again, do I need to back away from certain projects because we don't have the money? So all these things are very connected. And if you're using a project software, you can also help you to estimate these projects effectively. Because now if you're doing the same project over and over and over again, you now have the data to say, look, these types of projects are going to cost me $25,000. These types of projects over here are going to cost me, my expenses going to $50,000. I'm going to need, 10 people on these types of projects. So all the data that you're collecting is going to make you better in the way you expense or these types of projects out. So now the cost, the cost of these types of projects. And most people don't use the data that they have to understand what the cost of these types of projects are for these projects, but also the processes, the challenges you look at, the opportunities. That all comes from the data. And if you have this data in the software, you can pull it and then really understand, how to, bring in your project management best practices. Now, I can say every company does project management differently. No two companies do it the same. And I've worked for different types of company. I've worked for large companies, small companies, and everybody does it differently. But it's understanding what best practices and how you do your project management in your company, and then understanding the data that you have to make better decisions as you're pulling in these different types of projects. And again, as I said, it all depends on what type of project management software you have. You can go online. They all have some type of free type of, or 30-day things you can go and look at the software. But my advice to you, when you go and pick out a project management software, understand what you need, right? Because I would hate for you to purchase a software license and then you look at it and you'd be like, well, this is not what I need. This is going to be twice the work. So just make sure you understand what your needs are and what you're looking for before you purchase it, and go and test it. The next thing is communicate, communicate, communicate. I can't even tell you enough how if you don't have the right communication in place, your project would fail. So this is another area that, you know, communication can, your project can fail real quickly if you're not communicating to, you know, the proper way to different areas. So let's think about our projects. You know, we're always have different people that we're talking to. We're talking to the sponsors. That's a different way of communicating, right? We're talking to our vendors. That's going to be a different way to communicate. We're not going to communicate the same information to the sponsor versus the vendors versus your employees, you know, versus anything else, right? How you communicate to those different, you know, groups or people in your project is going to be effective, because now you got to take this information or this message, right, and communicate this the information to these different parties, and to ensure that they're all on the same page, right? It's really hard, but you have to have a plan to on a way to communicate. One of the ways is through the project management software tool, right? The project plan. Dashboards are good, right? Documents are good. You know, issues, you know, you have an issue list, you can have a risk list as well. All of that information, which we call documentation, is part of communicating, you know, and we need to make sure those documents are always, you know, updated with the latest information so they can go to the project plan and see where we're at. They don't have to come to you if you're running the project as a project manager and be like, okay, Saria, where we're at, can you send me an email, let me know? I can just say, you know what, here's a link to the project management software. It has the project, you know, the project plan is updated and the dashboard is updated. All the information you want to know, okay? But then we also have, we may have weekly meetings and our bi-weekly meetings. And let me tell you, AI, project manager is using AI. In these weekly meetings, they're recording it, and then they're, you know, bringing it into AI, and, you know, they're putting their little, you know, information in, and it's popping out the meeting notes. 30 minutes, right? I just actually went to a webinar talking about how to use AI for meetings. Because, you know, once you know, you're facilitating a meeting, you're writing the notes, you know, you're trying to figure out who's there, you know, it's going to take a couple of hours. It's going to take a minute to get those things, to get those notes out. But with AI, 30 minutes. And you can push those notes out. And actually, you can put them in the project management tools, and you can tell them, hey, you know, the meeting notes are out there. It's on the project management tools, and they can go and pull it themselves, right? So what I'm saying with this, communicate, have a communication plan, and how you want to everybody understand where the project's at, but also a communication plan to understand when you go through those, through your review of your portfolio, you're understanding where things are, okay? I know I spent a lot of time on communication, but it's very important. Project metrics. Now, we talk about project metrics. Every project is going to have different metrics. You know, you're going to understand time. That's a metric. You're going to understand your budget. That's another metric. You're going to understand resources. That's another metric. But sometimes you may want to measure other things in your project. So understanding what those metrics are and making sure they're being documented, whether it's in the project plan or in the project management software that you're using, is critical as well. Because again, all of that information when we talk about, understanding or reviewing your portfolio is going to make a difference on if we keep this project, if we close it out, if we decide, hey, we don't want to do this anymore. These types of projects, when you're looking at your business plan and thinking about where you want to take your direction, you'd be like, hey, these type of projects, we just are not going to do anymore. They are costing us money, and it's just not cost effective for that. So that's why under having a project metrics, understanding what the project metrics for your projects is very important. And again, it's going to be different from project to project, but also going to be different from company to company because it's depending on your industry as well. The next thing we're talking about, training and development. Are we training, especially our new hires or people that we have on staff? Do they understand the methodology that you're using for these different projects? Now, as I said, every company does project management different. Some people use waterfall. That's a methodology. Some people are using agile. That's another methodology. Some people are using both, which is waterfall and agile in their project. But you have to train your staff on these different types of methodology so they can understand the different methodologies and then how you are using it inside your business as well. So ensuring that the team has the right training on how you do project management in your business, what tools you're using, right? We talk about project management tools, what templates you're using, how you're using your communication, how is that set up? So ensuring that your team understands what's going on and how you use project management is going to be critical. Because if they don't understand how you do project management in your business, your projects are going to suffer. Oh, I love this quote, and I use this quote all the time. And it says, as your business grows, right? And that's the point. As you're growing in business, you have to think deeply about the way you organize your projects. When I first started out, I didn't have any projects. I was still out there networking and trying to bring business in. And when I got my first 2 projects, yeah, they were manageable. But when I started growing and started getting bigger projects, more projects, I have to realize, how am I going to organize these projects? Right? How am I going to communicate? How am I going to set up? What methodology am I going to use? What project management software tools I'm going to use? Now, I know some people are still using Microsoft Excel as a tool to use for project management software. That is fine. I still have clients who still use project management or Project Excel because they're smaller projects, right? And Excel just works better for them. But understanding what tools you're going to use, what templates, what is going to help you, have your projects be more effective, and how is it going to help you as well? Now, one of the project management software tools that I like to use is Smartsheet. Smartsheet is an online platform, and it's you can use it for project management projects. You can use it for projects and put information in there. One of the reasons why I like using Smartsheet, is that it had templates. The templates are already there. So if I'm a project manager and I need to go ahead and create a project plan, I can go to the templates. It's going to cut my time in half in setting up that project plan instead of starting from scratch. Okay. So understanding what that information is, and then also I like use a Smartsheet. I'm not here to, tell you what to use, but I just kind of like it, is they have a dashboard. So if people are looking to see where the project is, they can go to the dashboard and you can say, oh, we're here, we're green here. This is the information that we're working on now, or the tasks that we're working on now. I'm trying to ensure that, is effective for me, and to communicate, what's going on in the project, but also, it's not taking up all of my time, trying to get information out and trying to communicate with, the different parties, in my projects, and using AI. It's extremely important. If you're not using AI, I suggest you take some courses on how AI can really help you, with your projects, and how to use it, to communicate. So those are the 10 ways or areas of focus to help you optimal your project management in your business, how to successfully execute, and to ensure that your projects are aligning with your business plan, going forward. So at this time, I can take questions.
All right, excellent, Cyrilla. Thank you. We have a few questions in here. Before we jump into those, for those that are participating on this webinar as part of the Seed Spot Spring Training Program, Tristan posted in the chat the link to check yourself in, and the code word is SLIDE. And I will post up information on that right before we wrap up this webinar. But that information is also in the chat. So as we jump into the questions, you mentioned a yearly business plan. Should we have a 5-year business plan or just create 1 year to year?
It's really up to you. I personally like the year, 1 year business plan. That's how I do for my business. But other people do a 5-year business plan. It's really up to you. What business plan do you want to do? You want to do a 1 year? You want to do a 5-year? It's really up to you and how you kind of structure your business. There's advantages of doing a 1 year business plan, right? For me, because I can get focused on 1 year. I can only take 1 year at a time, y'all, 1 year at a time. But there's other industries that do, or businesses that do a 5-year business plan, and usually they're pretty big, right? Because they kind of already know where they're going, and they need that 5-year business plan to kind of keep them on track because they have bigger goals, than they wanted to implement.
It's really on that topic, like, for example, the Arizona Commerce Authority, we have a 5-year business plan, but we also do yearly goals. And the way I like to look at it is, if you're a small business, where do you want to be in 5 years? You want to set that target and then have some game plan how to get there, and the real focus game plan. Okay, here's what I'm doing this next year. That's my plan. That's what I'm going to stick to. And that's that strategy. So you know where you're going, and you're going towards that goal of 5 years down the road.
Exactly.
All right, the next one, it says, can you use Google Excel instead of using software? Google or Sheets or Excel instead of using software.
Now this is you can look at it different ways. As I said, I have a client that used Microsoft Excel. But these are very small types of projects, right? And you can use Excel, but it's just harder to pull the data from Excel, right? Than if you use like a software like, you can use Smartsheet, Trello is another one you can use. It's just about how difficult is it going for me to pull the data, right? To understand what types of projects I have and what's my challenges, and what's my opportunities, and what am I doing and well. Okay, so don't discount Microsoft Excel, but I would say use Microsoft Excel if you have smaller projects. If you're having any bigger projects, you should be using a software.
All right, and then the next question ties in with that. Can you please give us some examples of project management software and some pros and cons to consider? Maybe some important differences that you know of between some of the different tools.
Yeah, so I'm gonna tell you what I use. I like Microsoft Project. That's it, and you can buy the software, download it on your computer, but also they have a online subscription model you can use. I like using Trello as well. Trello is another software that you can use. Some people are visual and some people are more detailed. I consider myself a more detailed. I want to see the details. But some people like more like pictures, and they can do like sticky notes on the software, and you can use Trello for that. So it kind of all depends. I also like Smartsheet, and I talked about that in this presentation. I like Smartsheet because a couple of things. Number one, they have templates. So if I'm looking for an issue to put together issue list, well, they have one already. So I'm just spending my time just, correcting the boxes instead of building from scratch. Okay. Also, they have a dashboard, right? Again, when I look at communication, I like that dashboard because anyone can go on there and understand where we're at, because it's pulling from the other data from the different sheets, right? They don't have to email Saria and say, hey, Saria, what's going on with the project? I'm just going to send you a link and be like, here you go. Here's all the information you need, right? So really just kind of, those are my three, but there's so many out there. There's Bright. It all depends on what you're looking for and how complicated are your projects as well, okay?
All right. We got some really good questions in here, so thank you for sharing all those, everybody. This one's kind of detailed, but it's a great question. It says, we are being asked to provide a systems engineering management plan for our project. Can you explain how this plan should be incorporated into our overall project management plan, and what other types of management plans that should be included in the overall project management plan?
Okay, so let me kind of break it down to you if I'm understanding this right. We got plans within plans. Let me give you an example. Right now, I'm working on an EV project, and what we're doing right now is our feasibility study. Our feasibility study is to understand all the components that we're going to need for the actual planning of the project. Because when we get to the actual planning of the project, it's going to be a 2-year project. But right now, we're doing what we call the project charter, which is part of the feasibility study, right? Getting all of our information together, such as, where are we going to put this? We need a spot, we need a land, right? Who are the vendors? Who's going to be the construction? Who's going to be, do the environmental piece of it? So I think what you're talking really about is the project charter, right? And the project charter is defining the scope of the project itself. Okay, so that's where it usually starts when you're talking about methodology, is especially in waterfall, you're talking about the project charter. And from the project charter, everything else flows down to, the project plan, the resources, the communication plan and everything like that. So I think that's what you're talking about, is the project charter, and to understand what is the scope of the project, what's in scope, what's out of scope, what's your constraints, what's your risks, okay? Who are the major players? What is the budget? Okay, that's the document that I think you're looking for. And then, like I said, everything flows from out of there.
Excellent. I'm going to skip a few questions and come back to them because they're related to business plan. We want to touch on those, but tying into this previous question, there's one in here that says, what's the difference between event management and project management? Is it possible to do both? And can you start a company revolving around them?
So event management plan and project management is kind of the same thing. Event management is actually when you're actually doing an event, but you're using project management concepts and best practices, right? So I can have event A be my first project. Event B can be the second project, right? So you're using the different concepts on event management, but when you're talking about implementation, you're really talking about project management, right? So think about it. If you're doing an event, you know, what is the scope? We're talking about project charter. What is the scope? What is the budget? What are the resources? Who are the sponsors, right? You know, what are the risks? What's in and out of scope? So that's really the only difference I see, is that project management is really the implementation of whatever event that you're managing. But you can use
Excellent. Thank you.
everything.
And I agree from my experience, sir, that, you know, using the project management tools and experience in event management and doing events can help the event go off better and smoother.
Exactly. And like I said, defining, I can't even explain to you. So when I usually talk to people and it was like, we're ready to execute. I said, what are you executing? We don't even have defined the scope. We don't know what we're doing. What is the actual, you know, what we're trying to accomplish, right? Right. If you don't have that information defined up front, what am I responsible for? What is the outcome of this project? That is defining the scope. And a lot of times we don't take the time to actually define it and bring in those, you know, sponsors and those stakeholders who are vendors and say, what are we trying to do here? Right? Because again, everything flows from out of that project charter. And if you don't define up front, you're it will be a mess going forward. And trust me, you know, they'll be calling me to say, hey, Saria, can you help us get it out of this crisis? And then first thing I say is, well, where's your project charter? What do you define? What's the scope? Oh, we didn't do that. Okay, well, this is where we're at. We kind of go a little backwards. Okay.
All right, so to be successful at a project manager, what do you think your best tool would be?
To be successful at project management? Well, that's kind of a two-part question. So to be, you know, if you want to kind of look at it as a project manager piece of it, and being whoever, if you're the facilitator, because you don't have to be certified project manager to run a project. There's a lot of people that have a lot of experiences running projects that are not certified as project managers. So one piece of it is this kind of leadership. I always tell people project managers are truth tellers, right? Because we have to be, right? Because otherwise, if we don't let people know what's missing and ask those hard questions, your project is going to not be successful, right? So you have the leadership side of it. And then the other side is really just the best practices. You know, when I come into a company and I do a project for them, the first thing I want to know, do you have, you know, a project management process I can follow? You know, how do you do project management in your business? That's what I want to know up front. So I can follow your flow, right? Because it's when you come into a company and doing projects, sometimes you don't want to be disruptive. So my first question, how you do project management. Now, if they don't have a project management process or best practices, then I come and I bring those into the company. I bring the templates, I bring the project management software, I bring the best practices and say, this is how we should, you know, since you don't have one, this is how we should do projects, right? So it's the leadership side, right? And being honest about, you know, the project itself. Hey, we don't have no scope. We don't have a budget, right? You want to do this with this money? Yeah, it ain't gonna happen. right? Either you're gonna have to give me more money or we're gonna have to start taking away scope. And no one really wants to hear that, but this is what we have to do, and you have to do it in a very nice way, right? Just be professional about it. But then also you have the other side, which is the best practices, the process, the tools, the software. Because companies don't know what they don't know, right? And being able to help them in both areas is really going to move that company forward.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. We've got 2 questions left, and they both tie around business planning. So we have someone asking, is it too soon to be thinking of a business plan if you don't fully have the metrics figured out?
Yes, you can still think about your business plan, right? Because first you have to understand where you're going. You got to understand what direction you're going before you define the metrics, right? So, if I'm trying to get into government contracting, right? That's my goal for, my company, right? Then after I understand where I'm going, then I have to, develop the metrics around it. So, direction first, and then on the back end, produce the metrics.
Yeah, I agree. You got to be thinking about that from the start. And it doesn't have to be a huge, massive business plan. If you're not sure on your metrics, and at least start with a business model canvas, which is a 1-page business plan. And if you go to our content library, we've done multiple presentations on that and how to do it. But you need that. When you start your business, you need to have a business plan of some type. If you're going to be selling bread, you're going to bake bread in your oven in your kitchen, you need to have a plan that you need to look at, because one, you need to know how much capacity you actually have to bake enough to make money that you're thinking you're going to make, and so forth. So that basic plan come in right at the beginning, and it can be fine-tuned as you continue to grow. Now, the second question that ties in from another person is there anyone that can help and mentor towards building a business plan that is effective? And I'll go ahead and answer that, Shirley. Yes, there are a number of organizations that can help you do that at no cost. SCORE, SCORE.org can help you find a SCORE mentor. The Small Business Development Centers, SBDC.net, is another one. Those are both SBA supported programs. And we have great resources with them here in Arizona. There's also the Women's Business Center in both Phoenix and Tucson that can help with that. There's accelerator programs with Local First and others, Hustle Phoenix and so forth, that can help walk you through those programs. I work very closely with SCORE and the SBDC and the Women's Business Center because they're both no-cost programs. So they don't, they say no cost. They don't cost the business that's working with them anything to do it. And the SBDC uses a program called Live Plan to help build that. And it can be from a simple business model canvas type setup initially to a multi-page, very in-depth business plan that a lender will want to read if you're looking for funding. So they can help in all that, and again, it's at no cost. So there are a number of those resources, and I'll try to post those in the chat here in a second.
And also, Robert, a business plan is just telling you where you're going. It's almost like, it's like boundaries, right? So if you're trying to go for, I don't know, a specific type of, let's say you're just trying to do government. You're doing government contract. That's where you want to go, right? And that's your focus. But what happens when like a nonprofit comes and say, hey, I got, do you take it, right? Or do you go in the direction you need to go, right? Which is the government piece of it. So it kind of keeps you aligned. It creates those types of boundaries for you so that you can hit those different goals that you have for your business.
Excellent. Thank you. So, Christopher, thanks for posting up in the chat, score.org and sba.gov. You also have the SBDC.net, which I just posted up in there, are great resources. On the screen, you have Cirilla's contact information.
Yeah.
And then,
Barbara, let me just tell you about the resources. So
yeah.
if you want to learn more about how to be a certified project manager, or just to learn about different types of best practices, you can go to PMI.org. They are the certifying body of project managers. So if you want to be certified, go there. And then I also have some related topics about different things, different project management topics. Here is my resources, my information as well. And this just kind of tell a little bit about the podcast. So it's called Manage Your Project with Confidence. And actually I interview small businesses and how they're using project management in their business and how they use it throughout their entrepreneur journey. And you'll be surprised, on some of the things that they do. And you can listen and kind of get some ideas of how you want to manage your projects with confidence in your own business. So I have another, this is my second episode. There's another one coming out actually today. It should be already out. Yeah, so hopefully that will help you as well to figure out how you want to manage your projects.
Excellent. Thank you. And so if you can stop sharing your screen, I'm going to post up for the SeedSpot folks the QR code you can scan and the password. Let's throw that up here. Sorry, let me make sure I get the right. All right, you should have up on your screen the QR code and the code word is slide. So I'm going to leave that up as we wrap up. Thank you, Cirilla, for the great presentation today. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Cirilla. If you have other questions, you can reach out to me and I can put you in contact with her or some of those other resources we talked about in today's boot camp. The reporting for this will be posted in our content library later today or tomorrow morning. You'll be able to access it. So those things will be available. We appreciate everyone's time with us today. And we have a couple questions popped in. Thank you. So again, I hope everybody got some benefit out of this session. It was a great session. We want to thank Cirilla for her time and effort and her expertise on this. We want to thank all those that are participating through SeedSpot. And just a reminder to all of those SeedSpot folks, you can attend these after the SeedSpot session. You just have to go onto our website, azcommerce.com, to the Small Business Bootcamp section and register. There's no cost to attend these sessions every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. So we hope everybody have a great week, and we hope to see you next Tuesday for our ChatGPT and AI for your business webinar. Until then, have a great week, and we will see you soon. Thank you.